My dad. Dustin. Yeah. I don't know exactly. I think it's you can do one. I know the video. Yeah. 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 But like we would you can read all those. Yeah.
Ellie, do you just need internet access?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're being recorded.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah. Everybody, thank you. And Allie's signing into her email and getting that set up. So, we do have one student who potentially may, it's not anything against you.
I have to.
That's
I
okay.
don't know how long this will be, but if it goes till 6:45, then I have to.
We're hoping to wrap up earlier than that.
We're gonna. Once you're here, you didn't tell me in advance like she did.
Okay.
You gotta say.
Nancy will come find you. She's probably not here anymore. I like not.
Leave at 5:30.
There isn't.
Yeah.
Is that what the problem is?
This is the worst room. Almost every single day in Reed's class, she has to turn this thing off and turn it back on, and then the sound works over the video.
Yeah, it's super, like, there's so much over stuff. Oh. Yeah, so.
It will be easy for you.
Hannah says for the Tuesday volleyball, I didn't think about it out.
Oh, really?
This year.
Does it look like anything's happening up there, Barb?
I
got
hear
it.
it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're good. All right, eyes forward.
Can you guys
Floor.
see things or no? Is it starting to pop up?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Would it be helpful if I flipped off one of the lights? Awesome. Well, first, apologize for my tardiness. You'll find out, I'll explain something. I've explained this thousands of times. I still struggle with my geography. So my GPS was really struggling and I couldn't figure out my way. So apologies there. But my name is Allie Irwin. I'm with the Foundation for Appalachian, Ohio. To give a little bit of background about me, I graduated from Jackson, Ohio, which is in southeastern Ohio. We often get confused with the northern Jackson, which is really good at football, and we are not. And so I went to OSU and graduated in 21, and then went to OU and graduated my master's just this past year. So I've been with FAO for 1.5 years now in a lot of different capacities in communications and programs, but then we were graciously partnered with Ohio Department of Higher Education for this grant in which we could create the Growing Home Fellowship. So we realized there are a lot of shortage areas in education, and we really want to support those who have chosen to go into education, and kind of that's the backbone of what the Growing Home Fellowship is, as well as we want to quite literally grow the region, grow the Appalachian Ohio region. So that being said, I'll get through and start the presentation. FAO is a regional nonprofit that serves all 32 counties of Appalachian Ohio. Our mission is to create opportunities for Appalachian Ohio's people and communities through philanthropy. And so one reason we do this is to fill the philanthropy gap, because those who are in Appalachian Ohio compared to outside of the region have a lot less philanthropic dollars compared to the rest of the state. You can see how big of a gap that is on this diagram. And so our whole goal is to try to fill that gap and reduce that percentage. We're currently at 90% fewer resources, which is unfortunate, but the foundation hopefully is here to help through programming, grants, scholarships, and other initiatives. And so one of those initiatives being the Growing Home Fellowship. So the mission of the program is to leverage the potential of emerging leaders to create advanced sustainable change within the region. This specific program, we want to identify future leaders, respond to workforce needs, and increase youth retention within the region. So I'll let you read through the details here if you would like, but my kind of spiel is that the Growing Home Fellowship is a 5-year leadership development program in which individuals agree to live, work, and volunteer in the region, so long as they are impacting K-12 education through their work, both in classrooms and outside of classrooms. So while we certainly want to support educators, this is also open to paraprofessionals. It's also open to support staff, school counselors, school-based healthcare nurses, things like that. Essentially, some of the benefits that you'll have are included with this $32,000 stipend, which is probably the biggest benefit of the program. Again, just for the return of this 5 years to live, work, and volunteer within the region. So we opened July 8th, but we just recently gained a lot of traction through different kind of social media campaigns and things like that. But unfortunately, we have to close this month on November 15th. If we're having trouble filling some of those spots, we have some flexibility there, but we really, really, really want applications in by that date. So, because our goal is to identify 120 by end of year. So again, we want to identify 120 by the end of the year, 60 of which are retention and 60 are recruitment. Not that this terminology is particularly helpful to you all, but I like to explain the breakdown statistics so that people know their chances. So part of this is, like I said, quite literally to grow home, grow the region. And that's why we want to do the recruitment. We want to do the retainment portion to champion the towns we currently have in the region as well. So retention candidates are those who are individuals who currently live and work in the region that are 18 and 30, between the ages of 18 and 35. As of yesterday, we currently awarded 20 more of those. So we have awarded 50 out of the 60 retention spots. And again, these are individuals who are already in the workforce. Now we have recruitment, which applies to you all, which are anyone who might be moving or returning to the region, anyone who is a recent grad or soon to be graduate, as well as first year teachers. And so the reason we classify all of those in recruitment is because we know that, you know, once graduated, you're kind of free agents at that point. You can almost go anywhere at any time. So we want to try to recruit you back to the region. Again, the reason I mentioned this is because there's a lot less competition in the recruitment category so far. The 5 number comes from prior to yesterday, but we currently have 15 out of the 60 awarded. We only have about 40 applications in though. And that's not to say that all 40 will get awarded because some of them might be quality, some of them might not be. So I always like to tell you your chances. Pretty good if you're really interested in this and if you have a good quality application. So we're definitely in need and looking for these recruitment individuals. So would love to have you all. So program benefits, other than, again, the big $32,000 stipend across 5 years, we want to offer a leadership development program. That's part of the reason why we wanted to do this, was to focus on workforce development and leadership. So we will do this through 3 different cohorts. And so again, it's live, work, which those 2 are pretty self-explanatory, and volunteer in the region. So through this leadership development, that volunteer piece is how we get there. So we have 3 cohorts, and I don't care to go into kind of what that looks like a little bit later in the presentation, but we have 3 volunteer cohorts, and that's kind of how you'll classify whenever you maybe apply. And that's how we'll pair you as far as some of these other benefits, including peer support and then community engagement and leadership. So here are the eligibility requirements. You must reside in Appalachian, Ohio, be between the ages of 18 and 35 as of December 31st, and you must serve the K-12 population. Again, as being educators in the classroom, that's really great. Also, some of these other support staff roles too. Applicant is passionate about developing leadership skills. And finally, for those who are graduating, must graduate summer of 23 or before. So. This just goes over how to apply. You will click this link. I can also provide the link. I think on those flyers too is a QR code, as well as the website down below. And so once you navigate to that site, up at the top is a video from my colleague, Emily Bentley, which I believe, Tim, you talked to. So it's a video of her explaining the program. Underneath, it goes into program overview as well as program instructions. So if you're interested in applying to this, I highly recommend you reading the program instructions. Not too hard, just that you need these 3 documents that are listed here, the application itself, the resume, and personal statements, and those personal prompts are on the application. And so you'll submit all 3 of those components in PDF form to the fellowships@ffao.org email. I'll be completely honest. I've graduated twice. This is the easiest application that I've seen. And that's kind of what I've gotten to as far as feedback from those who've applied. And so I think it's 6 pages. The first 2 are completely description and words. The second 2 are just basic, you know, what is your name? Like, what school are you going to? Like, basic demographic questions. And then the last 2 are your preferences in those cohorts, as well as the 5 prompts. And then just to give you some good maybe description of what we want in those 5 prompts. We're not looking for, you know, paragraph or page after page. Also, hopefully looking for a little bit more than 1 to 2 sentences. But a good rule of thumb is just any link that can showcase kind of your passion. What impact do you want to have in K through 12? And where do you see yourself maybe going within, you know, supporting that population of people? Our committee reviewers, I believe there's 6 of them. All of them are very community and just kind of passion driven people. And so I always like to give that a little bit of advice there, just because that's what they like to look for. So I've already explained this, November 15th. You guys all have the QR code. And then, as I mentioned about the application, these are the first 2 pages. And then second 2 pages, you guys will all say recruit, which is hard to read, but the second one that you'll hit right here. And then current occupation, you can either do what you do part-time or if you have an internship, but otherwise you can put NA because we'll go directly to your, you know, post-secondary education to know that you're in college. So
Where did you say you do the NA?
right here, if you don't have current occupation, you can put NA for all those because we'll look over at your post-secondary and know.
Would you rather, like, if we did a part-time job, put that or just put
You go ahead and put part-time. Maybe you want to reference that maybe in some of your prompts too, one of your 5. And so if you're passionate about what you're currently doing part-time, it might be a good thing to like mention that and then go into your prompts, but it's totally up to you. So good questions. So these might be hard to read. I can go through what the prompts are if you're interested at the end. But again, this is basically the most time-consuming page of the application. I mentioned those 3 cohorts, and on the right here is where you'll rank them. 1 through 3, 1 being the most interested, and then 3 being potentially the least. And so we'll place you in this cohort. So we'll take the 120 and divide it into 3 portions. The cohorts are broken down into regional, local community development, and sector-based programming. So the regional cohort is volunteer work related to kind of what FAO does at large. So really impacting the whole region. Like, for example, something that I was really passionate about at OSU, I was in their ag school. So I did my kind of capstone or thesis project on women in Appalachia, not knowing that I would like get a job here. And so at that point in time, I probably would have picked the regional cohort because it's more about impacting kind of Appalachian Ohio at large and, you know, recognizing some of the things like the philanthropy gap that we mentioned earlier. It could also be partnering with us to do volunteer work through one of our, again, larger initiatives. Give you 2 examples of those. We have a mobile vision clinic. So it's called Vision to Learn. We noticed that a lot of students in Appalachian Ohio don't have access to eyewear and then can't read their books in classroom. And so you wonder why some of these students aren't kind of getting out of class what they need. So it provides free eye exams and free eyewear to students. If you're really passionate about that, we can connect you there. Let's see. As well as we have a program that we partner with called First Book. Is anyone familiar with First Book? So it's a program that tries to increase childhood literacy rate by providing free books to students. So maybe you're like an English teacher or whatnot, or you're just passionate about reading. And so maybe that's something you want to involve yourself in there. The local community development cohort, which has been the most popular of the 3 so far. If you're extremely passionate about your roots and your county, and you're pretty tied to a location, this is probably a good one. Again, we do have to kind of evenly distribute you across the 3, but local community could be any community-based organization, or maybe it's impacting, again, a specific county that you live or work in. We also have 14 community fund counties that's umbrellaed underneath FAO. For example, there's a Jackson County Community Fund, and that's where I'm from. And we do a lot of work there that have their own volunteers and whatnot. So if you're from a community fund county, we could easily place you with kind of what they do to help you there. The last one is sector-based programming. This is very specific to kind of the industry, so very specific to just K-12 education. I like to describe this as more self-driven. more of passion-led projects, a little bit more individualistic, not so much working with as many people. And, you know, for example, we have someone who's already applied, who's an art teacher, who has selected this cohort. They're a retainment candidate, but they've long wanted to do a program to connect art and the environment. So they're wanting to start Arts in the Park program, but they've not had funding ever to create that. So they want to create a program connecting school-aged children to art skills while enjoying nature. So that's something that they want to do. So something like that could fall into that category. Again, a little bit more self-driven, slightly different than the other two. Okay, so some other kind of key questions that we often get: what can I do with the funding? The funding is used at your discretion. So unlike a lot of other stipend programs or, you know, loan programs or payback programs, you know, you can use this however you want. It could be used as supplementary income. It could be used for storing away back for another higher education degree, for maybe a master's or a second master's. It could be used to obviously pay back student loans, which is the big one. We also recognize that a lot of teachers have to unfortunately pay for their own supplies, for classroom supplies. So this would be great for that. So that way they didn't have to come out of pocket. Something else that I often get a question about, what if for some reason I have to stop the program? Like, do I have to pay back anything back? And the answer is absolutely not. This is not something that you have to pay back or not something that you're expected. This is definitely just to benefit you all as individuals who might want to live in Appalachian, Ohio and work at K-12. Some other questions that we get, you do have to live in one of the 32 counties, and I can pull the map back up, but you can live in one county and work in another and vice versa. You can move at any point in time during the 5 years as long as it's within one of the 32 counties, so as long as it's within the region. If you were to move or your employment were to change outside of the region, again, no penalty there. You would just turn that in, because we will do proof of residency and employment. We'll just turn that in and say, life happens. We had a life change. I decided to move, or I had to go somewhere else. Totally fine. That's okay. We would just stop payments there. The next question I get then is, how are the payments distributed? So it's slightly different for those graduating May 23. But on a typical schedule, we do over the 5 years, the first 2 years are front loaded. So it's between that $10,000, $12,000 mark. And then the last 3 years are that smaller amount distributed. So I think I've hit it all. What questions do we have? I know it was a lot and really quickly.
Okay, so just one question real quick, going back to the, like moving. So you can, as long as you work in a county, even if you don't live in that county, it's okay, but you can't live in a county and work in a county that's not included.
Right,
Correct.
so correct. So for example,
like I live in Holmes County.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like right on the edge of it. So if I lived in Wayne County, but worked in Holmes County, it'd be fine.
well, you have to live and work in the region. So for example,
Okay.
like you could live in Holmes and then work in Coshawk.
But it all, okay.
Does that
Just
make
as long
sense?
as it's all, okay, yeah,
Yes, yeah. So they could be different counties as long as it's within the region. Like for example, I used to live in Jackson County, but I did a lot of my work in Hocking. So that would make
Gotcha, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Any others?
I guess like from the applicants, I don't know if have you seen the applications, or do you know? So like, what's one thing that what makes you choose to accept one of the cover? Like, what's one thing, a big thing that we
Yeah.
should look for when submitting our applications?
That's great. So definitely, very good question. So definitely that, that impact, and definitely showing kind of your passions. We've had some, I will say, we're being a little bit more lenient with recruitment applicants because we really want those numbers. So I don't want to say, I want you to, put a lot of effort into it, but you would have to show no promise and no achievement to be probably, weight-sided. Something that you can do, or something that I would like to see in applications, especially in recruitment, since that's kind of what I deal with. I would love to see something maybe a little bit more than a paragraph. Right now we're seeing very much like three sentences, and that's a little bit rougher to kind of shape a whole program around, and maybe showing what you want to accomplish both in the classroom as well as throughout the program. So we've had some individuals only show what they want to do and what they want to see through K-12 education. but they're really looking at this emerging leader piece. So, how much potential do you have as an emerging leader to contribute in this next 5 years and then beyond? Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so we're definitely looking at that potential piece. What have you done previously? We realized that, a lot of this age group may not have a whole bunch of experience or a whole bunch of leadership skill, not skills, but leadership things to put necessarily on their resume. But what have you done currently that could then turn into something big and something that, again, you're passionate about? Had another tip. As well as kind of what do you want to gain individually from being in a program like this? So, and then lastly, how would that impact your classroom? So those are all really great things to showcase. So I can actually go to.
And these would be like, we would kind of answer these questions in those 5.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Yep, and that's what I was getting ready to go to. So not too difficult. The first one is quite literally, please describe yourself and the reason you're applying for the Growing Home Fellowship. This might be good to highlight a specific story. For example, when I was at OSU as an academic coach for 3 years, and so it was a lot of like motivation and self-efficacy and like study skills, things like that. Not like tutoring because I'm not smart enough for this thing. But I was sitting in a session one time and was talking about where I was from and try to build rapport because we had rapport building that we wanted to build within the first 15 minutes. I had someone look at me and say, wow, I can't believe you're from Appalachian, Ohio. Like, you seem really smart. Like, you don't look like you're from Appalachian, Ohio. And something like that just like really struck a chord with me. Like, what am I supposed to look like? What am I supposed to sound like? So like highlighting a story like that and saying like why you think it's important to, or like my answer to that would be it's important to be in this program because it breaks the stigma of what Appalachian Ohio is and it really shows what we could be in 5 years. The second one is considering the 3 leadership cohort options. Which cohort interests you the most? How do you envision using the role as Growing Home Fellow to address the needs you see in your community? The needs in your community thing is really great to obviously hit on and answer there. But this answer to the question will vary depending on what cohort you choose. Sector-based, I think, is a little bit easier to answer that because, again, it is more passion project led. Before you head out, do you have any questions? I just want to make sure I help.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I have to.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Yeah. But yeah, I can help maybe tips there if you have any specific, if you have an idea of what cohort, whatnot. So 3 is provide a brief description of your current role working with K-12 students. If you don't have one, that's fine. What do you want it to look like? Why are you passionate about this work and what are your career goals? Describe any past or current community involvement in one of the following areas: education, health and human services, community and economic development, arts and culture, and environmental stewardship. Tidbit, the reason why we ask that question, part of what we do and what our mission is built on and bolstered on our 5 pillars of prosperity. And so we want to help address these 5 areas within FAO with bridging this philanthropy gap, one of which being education, but the other 4 are up there. Not saying you have to have experience in any of the other 4, but if you have something that kind of bridges together, for example, the eyewear example is a good one because it hits health and human services as well as education. Yeah, I can answer those a little bit more in depth. But that's the reason that we asked that, to try to see how you can kind of holistically help with some of these areas. 5, why do you want to live in Appalachian, Ohio, or why do you want to continue making the region your home? It's more of a personalized kind of question. So, yeah. Or if you've never been here, then why would you want to make it? Yeah, go ahead.
I thought you were done. This doesn't have to do with that question. It's just something overall.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned like the art thing where they have like a big idea. Do we need to have like a big idea, something like that to apply?
Nope. Okay. Definitely not. What's really great about this, it's almost kind of consider it more of like a personal achievement award. So you could use funding. It doesn't have to be advance this big thing. It could be, to help with supplementary income so you can continue doing what you're going to be doing, and supporting you while doing so. So that's also why we want to have a connectedness, like a good network, and why we're having a larger cohort is to create that support as well. But if you, maybe don't have this big grand idea yet, or don't, you could hit on that local or regional cohort is probably what I would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Another question. So, like in regards to us graduating in the spring, when would payment start? Like,
Very, very good question. We're still working that out. I mentioned the 5 year structure and what that would look like, we might be doing one big first installment and then only 3 later ones. Just trying to figure out, it gets tricky with how funding is given and then allocated and when it has to be spent by. So those who, graduate maybe by December or once we award some of those fellows, like I said, in the retention pool, we have some people already in the workforce. They'll technically start in January, February. And so they can receive their payments like as soon as possible. Obviously, we don't want to overwhelm and overburden you all as you are all, students and doing a lot of things at once. So we're still trying to figure that out. That was a lot to say. Sometime in the later next year.
No,
It says here you need to have proof of residency and employment, by July 1st, 2023. So like, I know I'm graduating in spring. I know I could have a job in July, but some teaching jobs still
Okay, yeah.
fall for, like, they don't come open until later in July or August, or it could be accepting a job and getting a new one, like changing it. How does that work?
We'll work with you on a case-by-case basis if something like that were to happen, but also know that as we work with these retention candidates, we've had to call school districts and places of employment or in organizations. And although I don't want to promise anything that we're like a good sounding job board, we have a good idea of maybe what needs certain school districts might need in the upcoming year. So if you're struggling to find that employment piece, we are more than happy to help make connections with school districts that we know, especially if you want to be in a certain area. Like for me, I've talked a lot with like Wellston, Jackson, Gallia, and that's just because of the region that I'm in. But if you're wanting to look there, I could call the superintendent and be like, hey, we talked to you about, people in your school system applying to this. We have a new teacher, a soon to be teacher who's trying to look for, an opening. What can you tell me? So, yeah. Yeah. These are good questions. Anything else? Yeah.
Could you talk just a little bit more about like the leadership code?
Yeah.
What would be expected?
Definitely. Love it. So because a lot of the programming that we're wanting to create will be very dependent on fellows, we haven't built out the curriculum yet. We have curriculum partners, if that makes sense. But we don't want to create, leadership development, skills, seminars or webinars without having good input as to what you want to learn, especially as a new educator, and what you may want to learn versus like a 32-year-old applicant, who's already in the workforce might be completely different. So we're still trying to figure out what that leadership development piece looks like, especially dependent on what kind of cohort demographics and stats we get. But I can say time commitment wise, we're only looking at 10 convenings over the 5-year period. And so what we mean by that is just 2 meetings per year, maybe virtual, maybe in person. We're going to try to like mix up the geography there and make it accessible to most. But really all those convenings are going to be our, the first half being a celebration saying, thank you for being a fellow. We love to have you in the program. Here are other fellows, here are other people from, the region, as well as having maybe a guest speaker come in for those skill development sessions. And we might have to do multiple because of how we mentioned people have different interests. We might have to do some different breakout rooms. And the second half of that convening being more of a social. So connecting you with maybe people who are doing similar, disciplines. So maybe, like a math section or, something like that for the second half of that convening. So the time commitment as far as that goes is 10 convenings across the 5 years. We are hoping that you participate in some way in these volunteer cohorts, but we are not tracking that as far as hours. We're not saying that you have to do a minimum volunteer work because I think sometimes that gets to be a tad bit inauthentic because we know that you guys are all busy and we're not trying to monopolize your time. You've got lives as being a 2-time graduate, knowing that being a new individual in the workforce is just a lot all in and of itself. But being of the nature of what we do and it being a nonprofit, wanting to make sure in some capacity we're working to create a community and helping through volunteer work in some way. So long story short, we are not tracking your volunteer hours. We will probably send out surveys to say, like, is this useful to you? Like, are you learning anything from what you're doing volunteer wise? Is it impacting your classroom in any way? Just to maybe get some good conversation going. But other than those 10 convenings, very good questions.
So if you're accepted in the program, is there like a certain person that's like your go-to? Is there like a head director? Is there a director of cohort or?
Awesome. So it'll be, so I'm a team of, I like to say 2.5, so 3. So it's Kelly Mormon is our program director. And so she will definitely have some say in kind of, placement and other pieces. Your 2 go-to people will most likely be me and Emily Bentley. So I've been really heavy on this recruitment side, and my colleague Emily Bentley has been really heavy on the retention side. So you'll be, as far as staff members for FAO, we will be kind of your 2 go-to people. We do want to create mentorship opportunities. And so notice that we had this 18 to 35 age range. We had several individuals apply that were over the age range, and we, want to recognize that their talents and what they have to bring to the table as well. And so we're trying to create programming and funding right now for the other subset of individuals outside of the age range to hopefully help you all in pairing for this more mentorship piece. So that way, like you said, you have someone you can go to and connect with for advice and whatnot. Still kind of in the works because they're running in parallel, but that's kind of the hope. So, very good question. I think that's the first question I've had like that, so I like it. Awesome. Anything else?
I think you covered it.
Awesome. Is anyone considering it even slightly or strongly? Yes. Okay. Where's everyone thinking they want to go?
I want to stay in the student.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, I'm going home to student teach, and I'm hoping to somewhat teach somewhere around there.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool.
I'm hoping to shop in.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. So we're wanting to stay potentially around where we're awesome. Very, very cool. Is there anything I can help you with? Obviously here to answer any questions, but anything I could answer from both an FAO perspective, but also just a recent student / individual in the workforce question. I guess more personal questions or professional questions. Any there?
This might sound like a dumb question, I know, but it's not a dumb question, but like, what would be some of the good things to put on a resume?
Yeah, that's great. Maybe any in-classroom experience you have now, I would say anything that you've done since the start of your college experience. I'm also probably not a great person to ask because I know that everyone says once you start college, you shouldn't put anything pre-college on there. I still have mine because I was the manager of my pool at 16. And so I'm like, that's a pivotal part of my story as a person. So always include things like that, even though I know career coaches tell you not to. But do you have any career coaching resources on campus?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think if you would reach out to Jackie.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, Jack.
And I think she can give you some great pointers. I mean, she always knows, I won't write their resume, but she's great to look it over, give you vocabulary choices, formatting.
Okay.
She'll ask you some probing questions, I think.
Okay.
But I think that her department would be a great one.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm also happy to, once you do that, if you have any other questions, provide my phone and email. So, yeah. Yeah, really great questions. See, someone else has a question. It's a good one to ask.
So the requirements for this is fill this out in PDF, like email it. Is there anything else with it? Like, do we attach a resume too?
So it'll be 3 separate documents. So you'll save this, and sometimes some individuals have save the fillable PDF. I'm happy to walk through that once you actually, are at that point. So you'll save the application, save it as PDF. You'll save your resume as a PDF as a separate document. And then you'll save your personal statements. And so some people actually just copy 1 through 5 and then paste it onto a Word document and then just answer in a Word document, which is kind of what we recommend doing anyway. And then save that as a PDF. So you'll just have 3 separate attachments that you'll send through that email. So, yeah. Something else I also recommend as a tip. I feel like I'm talking your ear off. When you send the email, it's highly encouraged that you put kind of your name and what you're applying for in the subject line. As well as, an intro, like, dear, Growing Home Fellowship Committee, or you could just say, like, dear Allie and Emily, that's fine too. with some type of body, like even if it's a one sentence saying, this is what I'm applying for, period, signed by your name.
And that would be the growing home fellowship.
Yes, yep. Not that that's a requirement. We have just gotten several emails where it's like blank and we don't even know what their name is. And so we have to like email back and be like, I see it's on your application, but just want to verify that this is you. So
I can't imagine not to.
I know. Wow. You'd be surprised. So, okay. I think,
Do we have your email?
yes. Would it be helpful if I like say out loud or write it?
You can say it.
Okay. So it's A as in apple, IRWIN at FFAO, just like Frank, Apple, Orange, .org. Make sure it's .org and not .com. So I'll repeat it. So it's AIRWIN at FFAO.org. And then I also don't care to like share my number out. So we have the office number that's here too, in case, oh, I guess I could have just done that and you could have written it. Whoops. So the office number is 740-753-1111. My number is 740-710-1245. So my only ask is if you do call or send a message to that number, just be like, Growing Home Fellowship, name, Muskingum. Good to go.
You, Ally.
Yeah. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Applications, right? You have done.
I already sent my resume to
Awesome.
Ranch, so.
Nice. Very cool.
And for any,
See,
if
hire
any of your peers and classmates and stuff who couldn't be here tonight, I did make a recording of this
Okay,
presentation.
because they were talking about.
Yeah, to let me know, and we're gonna make it available for them to see, so, let me know or let us know.
Don't tell too many.
It's so funny. That you got that.
Yeah, I know.
I will say, like I said, we've only awarded 15 out of 60 so far and currently only have 40 applications in. So if you have like 20